Hey YouTube, how's it going? I think I want to make a follow-up video to my Risperidone video. It's done very well. It's my most watched video. I mean, I spend all this time on here in my office videos, and if you want to see that and learn more about my life and what I'm doing for employment, my unemployment situation, check that out. But this is a timely video because my unemployment situation all did start around a time that I was manic a year ago. And I've been taking Risperidone, Risperidone, Risperidone. I think it's generic for Risperdal or something like that. And as I said in my last video, they're small. At least the 2 milligram pills are pretty small, pretty easily digestible. But they're at least in the beginning, it was a very powerful antipsychotic drug that zonked me out and made me very tired. But over time that I've been on it now, it's been about a year. I'm sleeping fine. I'm not noticing any side effects when I go and see my doctor. They asked me, thoughts of suicide, how are you doing? And I just said, no, everything's perfectly fine. I've been on a job search, job hunt, going to these interviews and doing all this stuff that could be considered stressful. And I'm doing okay with it. Haven't gotten an offer yet, but I am doing okay with it. So I was prescribed Risperdal, as I said in my last video. I was admitted to the hospital. This was for a second time in my lifetime. The first time was like 4 years ago. 3 years ago, something like that. And then the last episode was last year, summer 2018. It's hard to think about. The longer it's been since it happened, the more it fades into my memory. But my second episode wasn't as pronounced as my first one. But both times the police were involved, and it became a big situation where I was admitted to the hospital against my will. I wanted to get out. I didn't want to stay in, and when you're admitted to a psychiatric hospital considered as a harm to others or a harm to yourself, you're basically, all your liberties are taken away and you're thrown into the hole. And if you act crazy up in there, they'll put you in a padded room and lock the door, let you have your freak out in there. So I was able to see those rooms. I wasn't in such a state where I needed to be put into those rooms, but when you are admitted to a psychiatric hospital, you go into like this intake room they call it CPAP, Comprehensive Psychiatric Emergency Program or something like that, CPAP. And it's just like a room. It's almost like a jail cell of people that have been picked up and brought in and having to go to, or people that have self-admitted themselves. It was in a big room with about 50 beds, and most of the time it was overcrowded, so all the beds were taken, and you'd have to, there were people laying around on the floor, and you got a blanket, but you're still, it's kind of cold in there. It was just not a good experience. So then once they make a decision to admit you, and in my case they did, they'll come down and get you and bring you up into a room. And I spent a month in inpatient while they adjusted my medication. And I was actually this last stay last summer was probably 6 weeks, because they had let me out. Let's just back up. The whole reason I ended up in the hospital is be careful with social media, guys, and bipolar 1 disorder, because when you're not thinking right, you can really cause some damage to yourself on social media. And my outlet was Instagram, and I was tagging the FBI and tagging prior employers and alleging discrimination they made, not against me, but just to the public in general. And just speaking out against a company. And what they did was they issued a warrant for my arrest, and they went and got me. It took a couple days for them to bring me in, but once they did, I was searched, and I had to go into a overnight. I missed court. We missed court when I got brought in, so I had to spend an entire night in jail, downtown Buffalo, and then in the morning it was seeing the judge, just to say, this is what I did. Sorry, I won't do it again. And they gave me like a 6 months restraining order. The company did, but it all happened while I was manic. So, and I also acted out against some people at work. I opened up human resources cases against people. So I didn't like attack anybody or confront anybody. I kind of did it in my own way. There's like conduct cases and things like that you can open with human resources if you think something's up. And there were a couple girls that had said some sexually explicit things and stuff that I wasn't comfortable with, and I reported all this stuff. But this was, and then I went out, and I was on short-term disability leave from work during my manic episode for approximately a month. Oh no, 2 months. And then when I came to do my return to work, that's when they had informed me that I was terminated. And what they cited was my behavior when I was obtaining a mortgage loan for this house. I just moved here a year ago, and during my manic episode, I was in the process of getting the mortgage, and I was getting very nasty with the mortgage people. I know nobody has any sympathy for banks and mortgages and home loans and things like that, so I was just telling them what I really felt about them, and I resorted to using swear words, and they were really making me mad. And I wasn't just acting out for no reason. They were driving me crazy because they were asking me for information I had already provided them, and they were really making it a runaround situation. So and this was all while I was unmedicated. I was in between hospital stays, not taking meds, and in an acute manic state. I also had lashed out against my family, against my aunt, against my sister, on text messages and Instagram and things like that. So basically, since then, a lot of my family has blocked me on social media. My sister has, just because, you know, when I'm not doing well, that's kind of my outlet. And yeah, you could act pretty wild on bipolar disorder. Having a manic episode, you're very a heightened sense of reality, and you might have delusional thoughts and beliefs. I know I did, that everything is okay, and that you're uber successful, and you don't have to worry about anything, and nobody can stop you, and that's kind of what I was doing. And I was even thinking, like, at work, I would come back to work and I'd be getting a big promotion, and you know, they would be thanking me for the what I blew in with the people opening the HR cases, which to me was just over the top. I didn't make anything up. I didn't say any lies, but did it require opening human resources cases? No. But the way I was acting had me thinking that I would come back to open arms, but instead I came back to something very different. The reality was they had seen the Instagram stuff. So I don't know how the bank I'm working at saw Instagram posts that I made about another company, but they saw that, and I had even hashtag workplace violence, and I didn't mean it that I was gonna do workplace violence myself. I meant it that the environment of drinking and alcohol and and this is not the company that I used to work. This is the company I worked at 7 years ago. They had a culture of drinking and everything, and I had spoke out about that on social media, and that's what led to my arrest ultimately. But you know, once I tried to come back to work, I realized they saw things very differently than how I saw them. And I was ready, though. I was ready to come back. I was excited to come back, you know. And they were not, they didn't have a position for me anymore. So what I decided to do was I immediately contacted an attorney and I said, hey guys, I have a disability, bipolar 1 disorder. I was in the hospital. I was out of the hospital. I was all this stuff that the bank saw me do. They need to understand that I was not in a good state of mind and I was not thinking straight, and I wasn't. It was the illness that was speaking for me. But yeah. So anyway, to back up to Risperidone. Risperidone, since I've been on it, I've had zero manic thoughts, and they come in various intensities. You know, I can tell when something's feeling not right, and I could tell when I'm feeling like I'm being followed or being watched. And a lot of times it manifests itself out in public. When you're out at a dinner, at lunch or something like that, and you know how you can hear always idle chatter and talk in the background of other people, and you just tune that out and you pay attention to who you're sitting with. Well, for me, when I was sitting at the table and I heard other people, I start imagining that, you know, and other people, they're talking about other people. I start imagining that they're talking about me. So everything gets to be made about me, and that's what drove me crazy. Because if you think that people are conspiring against you or talking about you and around you, you're gonna it's gonna make you very paranoid. But that doesn't happen on Risperidone. Risperidone has, I would say, just returned me to a normal state, and 2 milligrams is not that much. So if it ever needs to be dialed up, because obviously there is a tolerance associated with the stuff, because when I first took it, it was hit me like a freight train and made me tired, and now it just really doesn't. But it's definitely got me to a point where I can work again. And I can go to all these interviews and do all this interviewing without a problem. I guess the only problem is I don't have a job yet, so we're still looking. But I've been applying to jobs. I was applying today. So what I do, I wake up, I start looking, going on Indeed, seeing what's popped up, and applying. And I've gotten several interviews. And had several rounds of interviews with several companies, big companies like Goldman Sachs, Walmart. We're looking at Wells Fargo, Charles Schwab. We did get really close with Goldman Sachs. I was down there in New York City, and they canceled the position, so that kind of left me high and dry. But I you know, my resume is working for me, and you know, I use Indeed a lot. You know, my profile on Indeed is rockstar status. It's all there, and my Indeed profile is basically my resume, and you can, you know, print out the resume from Indeed. So that's kind of what I've been using. But I am facing the prospect of having to move, because a lot of these jobs are outside of Buffalo. But it also is going to bring into focus that, you know, I go and see a psychiatrist once a month, and then I see a therapist at the same place once a month too. And it was kind of a pain in the butt to set it up and find a psychiatrist, because a lot of places aren't taking patients, and it took, you know, I needed someone to prescribe me the drugs. And I just said to them I might be possibly moving out of town, and they said that they would set me up with a good amount of refills to give me time to look for a new doctor wherever I may end up. So that's good. But yeah, my last video I made on Risperidone had over, now for me it's a lot, like I had 4,200 views, when here in my office videos usually make like 100. So if you guys seem to like these videos, stories about what is then used to be called manic depression and is now bipolar 1, and how to cope with it and how to live with it, and how to live a normal, productive life. I'm proof that you can. It just needs to be managed. You can't be going off the deep end. You can't be going manic. When you're manic, you're not going to make good decisions. That's the problem. So, being manic feels good, though. Don't get me wrong. Gives you that confidence boost and feeling of euphoria that you're not going to get. Maybe some drugs will do that, but it's like a natural high. So that's when people ask me, how am I doing? Is it bad? I said, even when it was bad, in my mind, it wasn't bad. It was feeling good, but of course everybody around you picks up on it. You're acting out of character. It's just kind of like when Kanye West acts crazy because he has bipolar disorder, or when Britney Spears went crazy and she shaved her head and did all that crazy stuff and lost custody of her children. But she's a very successful person. You can't deny that. And same with Kanye West. They're very successful people, but they struggle with the same thing I struggle with. I don't struggle with it though. They have the same thing I have. Let's put it that way. But if I was to say I was struggling with bipolar 1 disorder, I would be lying, because it's not a struggle. It's just like who I am. And they say it doesn't define you. I said, well, actually it really does. I'm the only person I know that has to, my mother has it too. So it runs in families. So other than my mother, I'm really the only person I know that has to take a pill to avoid disaster. So if you're taking Risperidone or a different antipsychotic for treatment of your bipolar 1 disorder, stay on it. I was on a drug before called olanzapine that I didn't like, that made me drowsy and feeling like it wasn't myself. I stopped taking that, and it took 3 months to feel normal again after I got off it. And I did experience olanzapine withdrawal when I was on my honeymoon in 2016. Just real intense feelings of being followed and being talked about, and unpleasant things like that out in public. So if you're gonna get off the drug, I would talk to your doctor and look at ways to taper off of it and start something different, or whatever the doctor's recommendations is. I'm not a doctor. I'm not recommending what you do, but I'm telling you not to quit your drugs. Any doctor would tell you that. And as a person on antipsychotic drugs, I could tell you, don't mess around with that. It's not worth it. And lastly, happy to say I did kick smoking, but I'm vaping a Juul now. Last year, during the stresses of the manic episode, or the stresses of the house sale, I would say, during the move, we had a very messy move where the movers quit on me, and I had to get different movers, and it cost me like $10,000 to move. I started smoking, and started smoking again. I used to smoke when I was a teenager. Just started smoking again, and I was getting to smoke like a half a pack a week, so having to go get a pack of cigarettes twice a week. And it was getting expensive, and I hated doing it. I knew it was bad for me. It's killing me. So I said, let me try this Juul. And it contains nicotine. And it does contain enough nicotine to make me not crave cigarettes anymore. And actually, I don't crave the Juul as much as I craved cigarettes when I was smoking. So I can go, if the Juul runs out, I do, like, where's my Juul? But I don't have that same powerful need for it like I did when I was smoking cigarettes. So it's a good thing. So yeah. So guys, I'm on Risperidone, nicotine, caffeine, and a little bit of green here and there when it's available. But my life has been just fine. So So guys, that's my follow-up video on Risperidone. It's been a year. I've been taking it, and I'm fine on it. I don't see any need to change anything. And you know, if you're taking this drug, follow your doctor's orders and do what they tell you to do. If you're in a mental health institute and you're brought in, if that ever happens to you, listen to them, take your meds. You can refuse meds. It's just going to make your situation last longer. You're going to be in the hospital longer. So once you get in there, start taking the meds, and you know, let them tell you what to do, because there's a reason you're there. That's what they kept saying to me. They're like, well, you're here again, even though I was brought there because my sister said I was going to commit suicide. I think I must have said in a tirade, I'm going to kill myself or something like that. And, you know, that led to, I never had those thoughts, but when you're looking for input from other people, when you're upset, you may say things that to get attention, and that's what it did. So this is my follow-up video, guys. I think I'll make, let me know in the comment section if this video gets as many views as the last one did. I do appreciate the feedback. I get a lot more feedback on these drug videos than I did on any of my office videos or any of my career-minded videos and interviewing. So if you have anything to say about Risperidone, any questions, let me know in the comment section, and I always answer comments, so go ahead and do that, and talk to you guys later on the next video. Thanks, guys.